The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, casting my cabin in a veil of inky darkness. The only light came from the flickering glow of the fireplace, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. I sat at my workbench, methodically cleaning and oiling my weapons, the repetitive motions helping to calm my restless mind. As I worked, my thoughts drifted to the countless monsters I had faced over the years. The werewolves and vampires, the ghosts and ghouls, the creatures that stalked the night and preyed on the innocent. Each one had left its mark on me, both physically and mentally. My body was a roadmap of scars and tattoos, each one a reminder of a battle fought and won. Suddenly, the shrill ring of the phone shattered the silence, jolting me out of my reverie. I glanced at the clock. Who the hell would be calling at this hour? I picked up the receiver, my voice gruff and wary. Yeah? Please. Please. You must help us. The voice on the other end was high-pitched and frantic, the thick accent making the words almost unintelligible. There is a monster. It is killing our people. We do not know what to do. I frowned, trying to place the accent. Eastern European, maybe? Slow down, I said, my tone firm but not unkind. Start from the beginning. What kind of monster are we talking about? There was a pause, and I could hear the caller take a shaky breath. It is like nothing we have ever seen before. It is huge and hairy, and it has claws like knives. It comes at night, and it takes people. We find them later, in the woods, torn to pieces. Please, you must help us. You are our only hope. A chill ran down my spine, and it had nothing to do with the cool night air. I had heard stories like this before, whispered tales of creatures that stalked the shadowy places of the world, monsters that defied explanation or understanding. All right, I said, my mind already racing with the preparations I would need to make. Give me your location. I'll be there as soon as I can. The caller rattled off a series of directions, their voice shaking with relief and gratitude. I jotted down the details, my hand moving almost of its own accord. As I hung up the phone, I could feel the familiar thrill of the hunt beginning to build in my veins. I gathered my gear quickly, my movements practiced and efficient, silver bullets, holy water, a few ancient talismans and charms that had served me well in the past. I didn't know exactly what I would be facing out there in the woods, but I knew I had to be prepared for anything. As I stepped out into the night, the chill wind whipping at my face, I could feel the weight of the caller's words hanging heavy on my shoulders. A monster, stalking the innocent, leaving a trail of blood and carnage in its wake. It was a story I had heard 1,000 times before, but one that never failed to ignite a spark of righteous anger in my heart. I climbed into my truck, the engine roaring to life like a beast awakening from slumber. As I pulled out onto the darkened road, the trees closing in around me like a living wall, I could feel the thrill of the hunt thrumming through my veins, as potent and intoxicating as any drug. Somewhere out there in the darkness, a monster was waiting. A twisted, horrifying thing that knew only hunger and bloodlust. But I was coming for it, armed with steel and silver and an unshakable determination to see justice done. As I drove deeper into the forest, the shadows seeming to flicker and dance in the harsh glare of my headlights, I could feel an icy certainty settling into the pit of my stomach. Whatever the hell it was, had picked the wrong town to terrorize. It had picked the wrong monster hunter to mess with. I was coming for blood. I moved through the dense underbrush of the forest, my eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The place was as silent as a graveyard. I would name the beast the Graves. I had been tracking the Graves for hours, following the trail of destruction it had left in its wake. The creature was cunning and elusive, but I was determined to bring it to bay, no matter the cost. As I pushed deeper into the woods, I began to feel a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, a sense of unease that set my nerves on edge. I knew I was getting close, that the graves was somewhere nearby, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Without warning, it was upon me. The creature burst from the foliage with a roar that shook the earth, its massive shaggy form hurtling towards me with terrifying speed. I barely had time to react, throwing myself to the side as its claws raked the air where I had been standing just a moment before. I rolled to my feet, my hand already going for my gun. But before I could bring the weapon to bear, the Graves was on me again, its jaws snapping at my legs, its hot, fetid breath washing over me in a wave of pure, primal horror. I managed to land a solid kick to the creature's snout, feeling the satisfying crunch of cartilage beneath my boot. But the Graves barely seemed to notice, its claws raking across my thigh, tearing through flesh and muscle with sickening ease. I cried out in pain, feeling the hot rush of blood down my leg. But I gritted my teeth and pushed through it, bringing my gun up and firing off a shot at point-blank range. The silver bullet tore through the Grave's shoulder, sending a spray of dark, viscous blood splattering across the forest floor. The creature howled in rage and pain, but it didn't slow down. It came at me again, its jaws gaping wide, its eyes blazing with a mad, ravenous hunger. I managed to get my knife up just in time, feeling the blade sink deep into the Grave's neck. But even as I twisted the weapon, feeling the hot gush of blood over my hand, I knew it wouldn't be enough. The creature was too strong, too resilient, its hide too tough for my blades to penetrate deep enough. We grappled and struggled, rolling across the forest floor in a tangle of limbs and claws and teeth. I could feel my strength waning, my injured leg throbbing with every movement. But still, I fought on, driven by a grim, unshakable determination to see this through to the end. And then, in a moment of desperate inspiration, I saw my chance. The Graves had me pinned against a tree, its claws digging into my shoulders, its jaws snapping at my face. But as it reared back for a final, killing blow, I managed to get my hand around a jagged, broken branch lying nearby. With a savage cry, I drove the branch deep into the Grave's eye, feeling the sickening pop as the orb burst beneath the pressure. The creature howled in agony, releasing its grip on me and staggering backwards, pawing at its ruined eye socket. I seized my chance, scrambling to my feet and limping away as fast as my injured leg would allow. I could hear the Graves thrashing and howling behind me, its cries of pain and rage echoing through the forest. I knew I couldn't outrun the creature, not in my current state. But I had bought myself some time, a chance to regroup and come up with a new plan of attack. I would need every ounce of strength and cunning I possessed if I was going to bring the Graves down for good. As I stumbled through the undergrowth, my mind raced with the enormity of the task that lay before me. The Graves was a formidable foe, a creature of pure primal savagery that would stop at nothing to claim its prey. And I would not rest until the job was done. Until the village was safe, and the Graves was nothing more than a bad memory. The sun was setting over the forest, casting long shadows across the ground as I made my way back to the village. My leg throbbed with every step, the makeshift tourniquet I had fashioned from my belt barely stemming the flow of blood from the deep gashes left by the Grave's claws. I knew I didn't have much time. The creature was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I had to find a way to end this, once and for all. As I limped into the village square, I was greeted by a crowd of anxious faces, their eyes wide with fear and desperation. They had heard the sounds of the battle echoing through the woods, had seen the blood and gore that stained my clothes and skin. "Is it done?" one of the villagers asked, his voice trembling. "Is the beast dead?" I shook my head, my jaw clenched tight. "Not yet," I said, "but it will be soon." I made my way to the village elder's hut, my mind racing with plans and strategies. I knew I couldn't face the Graves alone, not in my current state. I needed help. Needed a way to even the odds. The elder listened gravely as I laid out my plan, his weathered face etched with lines of worry and doubt. But in the end, he nodded, his eyes glinting with a fierce determination. "We will do whatever it takes," he said. "This is our home, and we will not let that monster take it from us." Together, we worked through the night, crafting traps and snares, sharpening spears and arrows, preparing for the final confrontation. The villagers worked with a grim, focused intensity, their fear giving way to a steely resolve. As dawn began to break over the horizon, I made my way back into the woods, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. I knew the graves would be waiting for me, knew that this would be the fight of my life. The creature emerged from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh, its fur matted with blood and gore, its remaining eye blazing with a mad, ravenous hunger. It let out a roar that shook the earth, its massive, shaggy form hurtling towards me with terrifying speed. I met its charge head-on, my spear braced against the ground, the razor-sharp point aimed straight at the grave's heart. The creature didn't even slow down, its momentum carrying it forward, impaling itself on the spear with a sickening wet crunch. But even as the spear sank deep into its chest, the graves kept coming, its jaws snapping at my face, its claws raking at my arms and shoulders. I twisted the spear with all my strength, feeling the wood splinter and crack beneath my hands. The graves howled in agony, but it didn't fall. Instead, it reared back, wrenching the spear from its body with a spray of dark, viscous blood. It tossed the weapon aside like a child's toy, its remaining eye fixed on me with a look of pure, primal hatred. I scrambled backwards, my hand going for my knife. I managed to get my feet under me, staggering backwards as the graves pressed its attack. It was relentless, unstoppable, a force of pure, savage hunger that would not be denied. But I would not go down without a fight. I ducked and weaved, dodging the creature's blows and striking back with my knife whenever I saw an opening. I aimed for its remaining eye, its throat, any vulnerable spot I could find. But the grave seemed to shrug off even the deepest cuts, its hide too tough and leathery for my blade to penetrate. We fought back and forth across the clearing, the ground churned to mud beneath our feet, the air thick with the stench of blood and sweat and fear. I could feel my strength waning, my wounds taking their toll, but still, I fought on. And then, just when I thought I could go on no longer, I heard the sound of voices raised in a fierce, defiant chorus. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw the villagers emerging from the tree line, armed with spears and bows and burning torches. They fanned out around the clearing, their faces set in lines of grim determination. And then, as one, they attacked, a volley of arrows and spears raining down on the graves from every direction. The creature howled in rage and pain, its body bristling with shafts and bolts. But still, it kept coming, its hunger overriding any sense of self-preservation. I seized my chance, lunging forward and burying my knife to the hilt in the grave's remaining eye. The creature convulsed and thrashed, its claws raking blindly at the air. But I held on tight, twisting the blade with all my strength, feeling the pop as the eye exploded beneath the pressure. The graves let out a final, agonized howl, its body shuddering and twitching as the life drained from it. And then, at last, it collapsed to the ground, its massive bulk lying still and silent in the mud. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. We all just stood there, staring at the fallen monster, hardly daring to believe that it was finally over. As the reality of our victory began to sink in, a cheer went up from the villagers, a cry of joy and relief and triumph. They rushed forward, embracing each other, laughing and weeping with the sheer, overwhelming emotion of the moment. I sagged to my knees, my body aching with 1,000 different pains. But even as the exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, I felt a sense of profound satisfaction, a deep, unwavering conviction that I had done what needed to be done. The graves was dead, the village was safe, and the long, dark nightmare was finally over. It had been a hard-fought victory, a battle that had tested me to the very limits of my strength and endurance. But I had emerged triumphant, bloodied but unbroken. a true monster hunter to the end. And as I looked out over the cheering villagers, their faces alight with hope and gratitude, I knew that every scar, every sacrifice had been worth it. For in the end, that was all any of us could do. Stand tall in the face of darkness and never, ever give up. It was a simple creed, but it was one I would live by, now and always. Until my last breath, I would hunt the monsters, and I would win.